We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel, and I thank you all for being here wherever you may be, and of course, however you may be listening. Well, the football season is officially done, and I told you guys that I would provide my reaction and my thoughts on the season. I've kind of already done that. I really want to move closer to kind of the positives over this last season, the negatives. Was the season a success? I've already answered that before, but I'll answer it again. And what needs to change going into next year, and what I actually think will change. I may also get into Iowa basketball. I'll probably do a separate video on that. As of recording this, Patrick McCaffrey has decided to step away from the Iowa Hawkeyes men's basketball team. But first things first, by the way, if you're not subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Support your boy. Support a fellow Iowa Hawkeye fan out. The channel is growing rapidly, and I couldn't be more thankful to all of you. You guys are the best fans in the world, and I really am so lucky to be able to talk with each and every one of you. At the very least, like, comment, share. And if you guys want to donate, you absolutely can. Support your boys' coffee habit. It is the end of the football season. I thank all of you who have given donations. It really means a lot. So let's dive into it, shall we? Where do we begin? Well, I read an article. I'll probably pull this up. I think it was from Hawk Nation, the Sports Illustrated Iowa Hawkeye page. If you guys haven't noticed, what is going on with all Iowa Hawkeye content, except for yours truly, is all of these places that used to be independent are now being bought by places like On3 or 247 Sports or, Sports Illustrated or whatever. And that's how they are doing it. So they're getting bought up by bigger companies and getting funding, I suppose, which I guess there's positives to that. But that's not why we're here. The article basically, and I've talked to you guys about this before, basically it did address the negatives, but it also said that in a nutshell, we need to be grateful of the Iowa Hawkeyes' success over the past 40 years, and that it has been much worse not so long ago. Now, actually, it has been quite a while. And, I have said this to you guys before. I've said that there is sometimes it's hard for me to be too critical because I know how quickly things can get bad. And the distance between being bad and average to good is huge. It really, really is. And we are, for sure, we're lucky to have had the type of success that we have had over the last 40 years as Iowa Hawkeye fans. I mean, Iowa has had more winning seasons than not over the past 40 years. And that's great. It really, really is. I think it really comes down to, while that is important, and I absolutely agree with that, and you guys know that I have said multiple times how important it is to truthfully take stock of the Iowa Hawkeye program and things of that nature. But it comes down to whether you really believe Iowa can reach even greater heights. I think Iowa fans are split pretty evenly between those who believe it's best to be loyal no matter what, be loyal fans no matter what, and be grateful for the success that they do have, as opposed to being ungrateful for the success that they don't have. And then there's the fans who I would probably lean closer to, who see what the Iowa Hawkeyes have and just go, you know what? It's not asking for much. If we just had this much more, we could be even greater. And that's kind of where I am. I don't think from that perspective, fans really are asking for that much. In the end, all the fans on that particular side are asking for is a serviceable offense. That is all that is being asked. Does that mean that you can't be appreciative for the teams that you do have? Sure. And if you are as competitive as I am, and I realize I'm not a part of the Iowa Hawkeye football program, but in the end, I still am very competitive. And I look at, for example, the Big Ten West and the fact that Nebraska fired their head coach and Iowa lost to them. Iowa State was not nearly as good as many people thought they were going to be. I mean, people didn't think they were going to be world beaters, but people also didn't think they were going to be as bad as they were this past season. The Wisconsin, how many thought that Wisconsin was going to fire their coach mid-season? Most people did not think that. Okay. And when you take all of those into account, it's hard to go, well, it was an absolute success, because you look at Iowa and their sturdiness, their steadfastness. And one would think that type of team would thrive in the type of situation that was the Big Ten West over this past year. It was a very weak Big Ten West with a lot of problems. It wasn't like Illinois was in their third or fourth year of the rebuild. It was only their second year under Brett Bielema. Okay. With all that in mind, in my eyes, they should have won the Big Ten West. They absolutely should have won the Big Ten West. Losing to Michigan, losing to Ohio State, most people lose to them and have lost to them forever. Now, I'll get back to that in a second. But the other teams, it's just not great, especially when, if you get down to it, Iowa has the most, or this past year had the most talent in the Big Ten West, aside from Wisconsin and maybe Nebraska, but I would say mainly Wisconsin. They had the most talent. The Big Ten West was a dumpster fire, and it was absolutely there for the taking. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting more, especially when it was in such reach as what we saw this past season. So that is that. Now, going back to Ohio State and Michigan, as I said, losing to them is not the end-all be-all. Most people lose to them. But Iowa would absolutely, the way I see it, Iowa would absolutely have an even greater chance to beat them if they were willing to make some of the changes that they needed to make offensively. But we saw a certain stubbornness exist the entire season. There's mainly two viewpoints here when it comes to this Iowa football season. There's the viewpoint of Iowa stood strong. They finished the last 6 games going 5-6. I think that was their record. They hung in there together. They faced adversity, and they found a way to finish strong, beating Kentucky, shutting them out, and winning 8 games. And they absolutely had a chance to win double-digit games again, which is true. And there's a certain argument from that standpoint where you go, do you throw the baby out with the bathwater? Do you, just because you didn't win the 10 games, do you throw it all out when you were just a few plays away from actually being a 10-win team yet again? And I understand that. On the flip side, again, you have those who say, we have been good for 40 years. We have the type of support, the type of university, the support from the fan base. The state of Iowa is producing more and more talent coming out of high school. We should want more. We should be expecting to compete in the top tier of the Big Ten that is Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. And to me, the way and that is more where I lean. I see Iowa, and I see a team that is top 5 over the past 40 years in the Big Ten, if not top 3 or 4. It'd probably be Michigan, Ohio State, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Penn State. I don't know if I said Penn State already. But they're knocking on the door. They are right there. They're so close. And I want to see them reach their full potential. I really, really do. And I don't think that it would take some drastic overhaul to do so. That's the thing. Ultimately, I don't believe it would take a drastic overhaul for them to realize the pinnacle of their ambitions. So that's kind of where we're at. Overall, as I already said this in a previous video, I do not see the season as a success. It wasn't a complete failure, especially after they beat Kentucky, even though you have to take that with a grain of salt because Kentucky didn't have their starting quarterback. Iowa didn't either. But, you know, there's so many guys that are missing. The bowl games just aren't what they used to be. So you have to take that win with a grain of salt. But considering the way Iowa won, they did finish on a high note, okay? And as I said, in my eyes, it wasn't a success. It wasn't as good as it could have been, but it wasn't a failure either. Things do need to change. I am steadfast that things must change. Not defend. I mean, it's just the one side of the football. It's the offense. And yet again, against Kentucky, we really just didn't see it. And so I'm not holding my breath. So when it comes down to what am I expecting Iowa to do to make some changes? I've seen people say, well, George Barnett, is he going to be fired? Brian Ferentz, is he going to be fired? Is Iowa going to get this player? Are they going to? And they're all phenomenal questions, and I will answer them right now. Okay. I don't believe any coach is going to get fired. Now, is it possible that George Barnett decides to go somewhere else, that Kelton Copeland decides to, that Brian Ferentz decides to go somewhere else? Yeah, I think that's possible. Certainly. That's absolutely possible. But sitting here, right here and now, I think that Iowa is going to have pretty much the exact same coaching roster, whatever you want to call it, that they had this past season. Schematically, I'm bullish on that as well. I think in the end, the only thing that's going to change is that it's going to be Cade McNamara in at quarterback as opposed to Spencer Petras. And even then, I'm kind of worried about that because Spencer Petras, while it doesn't look like he's going to be able to play next season regardless because of his injury, it does seem as though he's still hanging around the program. So I wouldn't close that door on Spencer Petras just yet, folks. Now, Carson May decided to transfer. I was told by someone who grew up in the same area as Carson May and I wish I had answered his phone call because I would have known about Carson May transferring even before he decided to transfer had I answered his call. But, you know, just terribly busy. He was told, or Carson May, he was told, or at least what he told me is that Carson May was told that Cade McNamara was going to be the starter no matter what, that he was going to be the starter. So in the end, my prediction would be that the only difference is going to be Cade McNamara is going to be the starting quarterback as opposed to Spencer Petras. And we saw, I'm blanking on who it was from the ESPN network, but somebody commented, I think it's the guy who played at Georgia. He was either a DB or a linebacker. He does have that Southern drawl a little bit. It's like James anyways, blanking on his name. He commented and stated what I've already said, which is Cade McNamara is going to end up being very, very frustrated by the end of the season if Iowa does not change things schematically. I just don't see it happening, folks. I just don't. And because we've been promised it for so long. Is it possible? Sure. Will I hold on to a little bit of hope? Perhaps. But we have been having this promise for a long time. Now, who are some players that I am keeping an eye on to see their improvement? You know, Xavier Wampa is an exciting player. Cooper DeJean is going to be an All-American next year, in my opinion. Lucas Van Ness, unfortunately, declared for the NFL draft. It makes sense. The guy has a ton of upside. He's 6'5". He's built like a brick shit house. I mean, it makes sense. Could he have benefited from returning? Yeah, I think so. But what are you going to do? Iowa still has a ton of talent across the defensive line, so I'm not too concerned about that. But it would have been nice to have him return and have basically two starting defensive ends in Lucas Van Ness and Deontay Craig returning. Now, Iowa is going to have to, I mean, depending on what John Wagner does, Iowa is going to have to replace Joe Evans, likely John Wagner, Lucas Van Ness, maybe Noah Shannon. They're going to have to replace a lot on the defensive front. So that is going to be a position group to watch. They have a lot of talent, but young. Linebacking group should be fun. Iowa may end up landing another wide receiver in the transfer portal. They already landed Seth Anderson, which should be good, who went to the same high school as Tyler Goodson in Georgia. I'm interested to see how Caleb Johnson, Josiah Patterson progress. I think it's very possible that LaShawn Williams ends up transferring as Caleb Johnson and Josiah Patterson continue to get more and more support when it comes to reps or carries. Nico Reganey, aka Nico Raggiani, aka Nico Ragaini, is returning, which is good. Very excited about Eric All. I think Iowa will be set at tight end. They'll have one of the best tight end groups in the country yet again. So a lot to like, folks. I don't want to be pessimistic and say that there's not a lot to like. There is. But in the end, what needs to change is fairly apparent. Will it? I lean towards no. Can Iowa still win 10 games without making changes offensively? Sure. We've seen it happen before. We have. But it doesn't mean that a problem doesn't exist. All right, guys, I will do the Iowa basketball and Patrick McCaffrey video later. Only so much time to go over all these topics. I'm very curious what you guys think moving forward with this Iowa Hawkeye football team. What are you excited about? What are you not excited about? I think right now, the feeling across the fan base, and I usually have a really good pulse on this, is meh. That's kind of where it's at. It's nah. So still, let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Like, comment, share, subscribe, donate if you would like. Support your boy's coffee habit. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy. Will out in facts or feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love y'all. See you guys next time. Go Hawks. Bye-bye.